Zoning Appeals of the City of Florence to order. First item on this evening's agenda is approval of the minutes from February 27th, 2020. Minutes have been submitted to members of the board. Are there any amendments or changes from members of the board to the minutes? All right, there being none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as written? Either Ruben or Randy or Ms. Moses, anybody wants to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as outlined.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Ayes have it. The minutes are approved as written. Next item on this evening's agenda is public hearing BZA-2020-02. There's a request for the variance of the property line setback requirements in table 5-17.2.1B of the Unified Development Ordinance for a monument sign. Address is 1452 West Evans Street, tax map number 90034-15-006 and 007. Pierce Land Company's owner of record. Applicant is Rhett Spencer, and I got here Mr. Scott is going to be speaking on behalf of the applicant. And the board will now hear from the city for their presentation.
All right, thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to share my PowerPoint screen. A little bit of a lag, we'll just give it a second. All right, so the applicant is requesting a variance of 34 inches from the 5-foot setback requirement for freestanding signs in the commercial reuse district to construct a monument sign. Here's the aerial map of the business location, and as you can see, it's 2 tax map parcels. One is a parking lot and one is predominantly the building. A little bit closer look, it's here on the corner of South Sunset Drive and West Evans Street. And again, it is commercial reuse down Evans Street. It does have some neighborhood conservation behind it. Future land use is consistent with commercial reuse. It's classified as a residential transition. And here is a aerial shot of where the applicant would like to place the sign. The little red mark is where we want the signage. The crosshatch is actually the visibility triangle, which the Unified Development Ordinance prohibits from placing signage so that it doesn't block vehicular visibility. So when people are driving, they're not causing accidents. And then also there's the 5-foot setback in the commercial reuse district that they also have to contend with. So the visibility triangle is right there on the corner of West Evans Street and Sunset Drive, and also a little bit on the driveway entrance. Here's a picture the applicant sent. This is an existing sign on site. And he put the tape measure down to show that the monument sign, they want it to be in line with the current sign. It's going to be smaller, but they're looking for about 26-inch setback off the sidewalk. And here it is. Here's a rendering of the sign with the existing sign in the background. So you're looking at about 20 square feet for the signage. Here's some nearby signage on West Evans Street within a 2-block radius that their signage is also within the 5-foot setback. So we have Favor of God, 1401 West Evans Street, the I Hope Center, 1414 West Evans Street. And then you have Munn and Associates and Services Plus, which also are within that 5-foot setback. So similar signs. Here are the variance conditions. That a variance from the terms of this ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest or owing to special conditions. A literal enforcement of the provisions will in an individual case result in an unnecessary hardship. Due to the specific layout of the existing parking lot and adjacent grassed areas, a relaxing of the 5-foot setback would allow the sign to be placed in such a way that parking lot modifications will not have to be performed, and the placement will be in keeping with signage placement of surrounding properties in the CR district. The applicant has expressed a desire to place the signage as close to the building as possible. There is space on the adjacent parcel that encompasses the parking lot, but an appropriate area in the landscape areas would be too far from the building. Number two, the spirit of the ordinance will be observed. A 34-inch variance from the ordinance's 5-foot setback will meet a 26-inch setback will be observed. This will not impede pedestrian traffic on the sidewalk or the site of vehicular traffic. The site distance triangles will still be observed at the intersection of West Evans and South Sunset Drive, and also the intersection of the business's driveway and West Evans Street. That there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. The current layout of the parking lot and landscaped areas, after factoring in the limitations of the site distance triangles and the 5-foot setback for freestanding signs, limits the placement of the proposed monument sign. Additionally, the existing building is located in close proximity to the front property line, reducing the space for adequate signage in front of the building. That these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Not every parcel will have these limiting factors in place of the monument sign, but there is a precedence for signs to be located 2 to 3 feet from the property line along West Evans Street, as shown in the attachment G of the staff report. And all those are within a 2-block radius of Pierce Land Company's building. That because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property as follows. Strict adherence to the ordinance would limit further construction and would not allow the second phase of development as proposed. That the authorization of a variance will not be of a substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good. Planning staff found at least 4 other establishments within a 2-block radius that have freestanding signs within the 5-foot property setback, as stated in the Unified Development Ordinance. The sign would not impact the adjacent residential uses on King Avenue or other surrounding residential uses. The site distance triangles will still be observed, and the sign's placement should not negatively impact pedestrian or vehicular traffic along West Evans Street. And that concludes staff's report.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff from members of the board? All right, there being none, we will now hear from the applicant. Mr. Scott, are you going to be speaking on behalf of Pierce Land Company?
I'm sure I'm happy to.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay, if you don't mind, sir, this is kind of odd, but let me swear you in via Zoom. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
All right, you may proceed.
To be honest, I thought Rhett was probably going to do more talking, but I'm happy to. Thank you for hearing our appeal. We're excited about this project. The tenants that we've got going in the building both have expressed interest in having monument signage out front that's tasteful, but that will give a good indication of where their customers should turn in to come to the building once we completed it. Brett's really done a great job working with staff, and staff has been wonderful, kind of coaching us through what we think is a good, appropriate, safe location for the signage that will draw attention to the building and to the tenants that are there without, as staff had said, without really, I don't think it'll impede or violate any of the spirit of what the ordinance was there for. So we're happy to answer any questions about the signage of the building. Rhett, who's the gentleman that's making the sign for us? Is it Daryl?
Daryl Oliver.
Daryl also has done a lot of sign work for us and was very familiar with the process. And he also was very helpful and coached us through, kind of through this process. And he's the one that will, hopefully, if we're fortunate enough to get the appeal approved, will be manufacturing the sign for us.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the board for Mr. Scott? All right, and Rhett Spencer, you're free to speak. I apologize if I jumped the gun on that. If you wanted to say anything, I'll be glad to swear you in.
No need to worry. And Chris did a great job. We're good. Thank you, though.
Okay, okay. All right. Well, if there are no questions from members of the board, we will now proceed to the vote. Do I have a motion to either approve or deny the variance request?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the variance request. And I don't have my sheet for all my, why I say I approve.
Okay. All right, well, Ms. Moses, would you mind if I spoke on your behalf?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Well, I make a motion that we approve the variance request based on the following findings of fact. The variance from the terms of this ordinance will not be contrary to public interest, where owing to special conditions, literal enforcement of the provisions will in an individual case result in unnecessary hardship due to the specific layout of the existing parking lot and adjacent areas. Relaxing the 5-foot setback would allow the sign to be placed in such a way that parking lot modifications will not have to be performed. The spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. This will not impede on pedestrian traffic on the sidewalk and will not limit the sight of vehicular traffic. The sight distance triangles will still be observed at the intersection of West Evans and South Sunset Drive, and also at the intersection of 1452's driveway to West Evans Street. So there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. The current layout of the parking lot and landscaped areas limit the placement of the proposed monument sign. Additionally, the existing building is located in close proximity to the front property line, which reduces the space for adequate signage in front of the building. But these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. But there is precedence for signs to be located 2 to 3 feet from the property line along West Evans Street, as shown in attachment G. All signs pictured are within a 2-block radius of this particular piece of property. Because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property as follows. Without parking lot modifications, the proposed signage cannot be set back 5 feet from the property line and within the proximity of the principal building. And finally, that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good. And the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of this variance, because the sign would not impact adjacent residential uses on King Avenue or other surrounding residential uses. The sign distance triangles will still be observed, and the sign's placement should not negatively impact pedestrian or vehicular traffic along West Evans Street. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The variance request is granted. Next item on this evening's agenda is public hearing BZA-2020-03. Variance request from the size and style requirements in section 3-8.1.9 of the Unified Development Ordinance for an accessory building. Location is 1007 Wentworth Drive, tax map number 90050-06011. Owner of record is Elizabeth McCann. Applicant is Fitz Lee McCann. The zoning district is Neighborhood Conservation-15. The board will now hear from staff.
Good evening. I will go ahead and share the screen now for you. All right. The applicant is requesting variances from several requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance regarding accessory buildings, including carport enclosures, maximum size limitations, and material compatibility regulation. The property is located along Wentworth Drive, near Scriven Drive, as you can see in this vicinity map. Here's a close-up of it. It is heavily wooded, and it is currently zoned NC 15, which is the residential district with large lots, and the future land use meets that for neighborhood conservation as well. This is a site plan of the building, and then the building pictures on the right are examples of what the applicant said the building will probably or will look like. He will have the enclosed metal building there and the open pole barn as well. And his building will have 2 lean-tos on opposite sides as shown in the site plan. This is an aerial and topographic shots of the site showing that there is quite a bit of a drop off in the parcel, changes by about 20 feet. And so they wish to locate the building on the level area that is pretty close to the house, directly behind the house, as shown in the pictures on the right. And as far as the conditions, and just making a side note, we did receive 2 affidavits from next door neighbors saying that they did not have any issues with him siting this building on the parcel. The conditions that a variance would not be contrary to public interest, that while an accessory building of this size and style would not be appropriate for many lots in the city because of the topography, the depth of the lot, as well as the amount of landscaping already on the parcel, that this would not overwhelm this lot as it would some others. And the purpose of the accessory building is for space, just for general storage and a place to store boat and a car. The spirit would be observed. Again, like I said, the lot is large and wooded with the topography that needs to be accommodated. And the proposed structure will be located within the buildable area of the lot, which means it will meet the setbacks that any principal building would need to meet. And it will also be screened from the public right of way. It will not be visible from the public right of way. It will be directly behind the house and is surrounded by a lot of vegetation. That there's extraordinary exceptional conditions. It's because of the, largely because of the slope down to the rear property line, limiting the usable area for a building of this size. That these conditions do not generally apply to the property. Again, the size and shape of the lot, and the applicant wanted a large accessory structure. And if he had used 2 structures, a carport and a storage building, he would not probably have needed an variance, but because he wanted to combine them into one building, that which exceeded the size, and because it didn't meet the compatibility requirements, that's why he was required to apply for the variance. Because of these conditions, this would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict it. If we held him to strictly adhering to the ordinance, he could use it as single family residence. He could have a storage building, he could have a carport, but he would not be able to take advantage of that flat area of the yard, and he would be limited in the structures he would be able to put up. And that the authorization of the variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property public good. Again, it will be located behind the existing building, will be screened from the public right of way by existing legislation, landscaping, and and landscaping, and by its location. And as I said, the neighbors do not object to the structure as proposed. So that concludes staff's report.
All right, and in this particular variance request, I know there are at least 3 variances that need to, or issues that need to be solved. Can that be done with one variance request? Is that what we're lumping them all into one? Okay, okay. All right. Are there any questions for staff, for members of the board? All right, there being none, thank you very much. We will now hear from the applicant. Mr. McCann?
Yes, sir.
Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
All right, you may proceed, sir.
Well, thank you. I am Fitzley McCann. I am the applicant. And as a preliminary matter, I do want to thank the board for taking the time this evening to hear this matter. I certainly, in these trying times, appreciate the board's ability to use technology in a way that allows us to go forward with this and not have to postpone it. I'd also like to thank staff, specifically Elaine. She helped me throughout this entire process, answered all my questions, was very prompt in getting back to me. I know everyone's seen her report. It's very detailed, very well written, and I appreciate what she's done as well as the rest of staff. Real quick, I remember when I was a young attorney, Judge Harwell once said to another attorney he didn't want any cold grits served to him. And what he meant by that is once he's heard something or once he's been told something, he doesn't need to hear it again. Well, I don't plan on serving y'all any cold grits tonight.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I know there's 6 criteria that the board is concerned about. They've all been addressed by the staff report. I think they've been addressed in thorough detail, and I appreciate the staff's willingness and ability to do that. What I am going to tell the board a little bit about, though, is the house itself. That house was built by my grandfather back in 1955. He and my grandmother lived in it until both of their deaths. My grandfather died in October of 2015, my grandmother last February, and I've just recently acquired the property from my father and my aunt. The variance that's being requested, I am requesting it on my own behalf because I will, in fact, be the one using the structure if the variance is granted. As it relates to the 6 criteria, again, I'm not going to go through all those. Y'all have seen them. Y'all have seen what the staff report says. But I would like to focus on number 6, and that is that whether or not the granting of the variance will be a detriment to adjacent property owners and or a detriment to the public good. And I know that the board members that are present have had an opportunity to review the report and specifically the 2 affidavits within the report. My property is bounded on the north by Jason and Sonia Wicker, and it's bounded on the south by Duncan and Gina Tyson. Both Dr. Tyson and Mr. Wicker have executed affidavits that are contained as exhibits to the staff report. Both of them have indicated they have no objection to the requested variance, and more particularly, they both indicated that they would like to see the variance granted. Going one step further as it relates to any detriment to the public good, the only public right-of-way that is contiguous with this piece of property is Wentworth Drive. As Elaine has shown you from the photographs, based on where this building will be located, it will be completely screened from any public view. Now, I think that's pertinent specifically as it relates to the variance request due to the different material that'll be used. While I certainly recognize the spirit of the ordinance doesn't want to have buildings that look dissimilar on the same lot, the fact that this building will not be able to be seen by the public, I think that certainly that goes a long way in supporting that particular request. So based on the adjacent property owner's acquiescence and lack of objection by them, based on the fact that because of the location where the structure will be located, it will be out of view of the public, I am asking that the board grant my request for a variance. Certainly, I can address any of the other 5 criteria the board would like for me to. I'm prepared to do that. But again, I'm cognizant of the fact that nobody wants any cold grits this evening. So once again, thank y'all very much for your time and consideration of this matter. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. Are there any questions from members of the board for the applicant? All right. There being none, we will now move forward with the vote. Do we have a motion to either approve or deny the variance requests from members of the board? And did Ruben make it back on? All right. Well, I'm going to step in and make a motion that we approve the variance request based on the following findings of fact. That a variance from the terms of this ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest where owing to special conditions, the literal enforcement of the provisions will in an individual case result in unnecessary hardship. While an accessory building of this style and size would overwhelm many lots in the city, this parcel is particularly suited to the specifications of the requested building due to the topography and depth of the lot. Number 2, that the spirit of an ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, substantial justice done. This is a large and wooded lot with variable topography that needs to be accommodated. The proposed structure will be located within the buildable area of the lot and will be screened from view of the public right-of-way. 3, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. The parcel is large and heavily vegetated with significant slope down to the rear of the property line, thus limiting the usable area for building of the size. 4, that these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The hardship is limited to this particular piece of property because of the size and shape of the lot and the desire of the applicant for a large accessory structure. 5, that because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property as follows. Strict adherence to the ordinance does allow use of the property as a single-family residence, but would limit the ability of the property owner to store personal property undercover and on site. And finally, number 6, that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. The addition is located behind the existing building and will be screened from the public right-of-way. Because of the wooded nature and size of the lot, its location should not impact buildings on adjacent property. And additionally, the neighbors do not object to the structure as proposed in amendments H of the report submitted to members of the board that shows the affidavits of the neighbors. Do we have a second? From
A
either.
second.
All right, Ms. Moses, thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The variance request is granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. And it is my understanding that hearing number 2020-04 is scrubbed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there are no more items on this evening's agenda. Are there any questions for members of the board? Anything that we need to discuss? Staff, does anybody have anything they want to bring up before we adjourn? Okay.
No, I just appreciate everyone's adaptability during this extraordinary time.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
All right. Well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. All those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.